I want to make a strong statement to say it's time to get the foundation right. It's time to ensure that, yes, okay, we're all running around, we're all busy, we're all doing 100 things, 100 miles an hour, but you got to make sure that everything's tightened up foundationally, right? And before getting yourself into problems.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I'd love it from your perspective. Obviously, you do something different than I, and to get your feedback.
So it's a little tricky, right? Like I believe at some point you do kind of have to have nothing and go for it and jump in, because that's kind of where you learn the lesson of not having a foundation.
Yeah.
And that's where you learn the lesson of like wasting your time and going down the wrong path, or realizing, you know, I could have done it this way, or whatever, the whole multitude of reasons. But you don't, I'll say it like this. When I was a kid, I ruined my credit. And my dad said, there's nothing like ruining your credit for you to never do it again or learn credit.
It's true.
Similar thing when building a business, doing a YouTube channel, a podcast, anything like that. And I hope that's the foundation type stuff you were talking about.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we'll go through it. Yeah, we'll figure it out.
But it's all like the basic when I hear foundation, it's like, okay, what are we actually doing? What's the plan? What does it look like? What's the goal? And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be anal about it and get every last detail, but you got to have some type of North Star.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with that said, I'll turn it about money for a second. Are you prepared to invest financially and time into that foundation to be able to grow from it?
Mm-hmm.
It's the old, and I'll shut up after this. It's the old cliche, like you can't shoot a cannon from a canoe.
I like that.
I've always loved that, because it's so true. You can have the baddest ass gun on the planet, but you ain't going to be firing it if you're just, on a wishy-washy canoe.
So true.
Yeah.
So true. So we're going to have a great time doing this, I'm sure. I've got so many things running through my mind, but I'll tell you a little story. Mm-hmm. This alarmed me so greatly that I sent an email to my entire client list saying, you need to do this right now. Okay. And I don't often do that. Mm-hmm. I get a call from a client of mine, nice lady, been with me for years. She said, Alex, I got a big problem. Not about my site, but a girlfriend of mine.
Okay.
Not my client.
Yeah.
She tells me, long story short, that a hacker had logged into the GoDaddy account of a friend of hers, who, by the way, has a Shopify site and doing some very significant business, right? This isn't some startup.
Yeah.
Managed somehow to move the domain name from their account into the hacker's account, okay, or some other account, says, we want 30K or you're not getting it back. And also took over their email. So when they started a chat with GoDaddy to try to get some support, they said, hey, we see that you're trying to mess around with us, so that the ransom's now 50K.
Jesus.
And just test me, you've got 24 hours, something like that, right? This happened like a week ago. So I'm just thinking to myself, how in the hell did they not see? Number one, they didn't have two-factor authentication turn on their account. So anyone that listening to this, immediately go to your account, turn on two-factor authentication.
Is it really that big of a deal with everything?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes, it is. So that's number one. Okay. And number two, they're running around, operating a business, making money, right? But there must have been some email notifications coming to them, the owner of the account, saying, we're starting the transfer of the domain from X to Y, right? And nobody caught it. Or their email was taken over. Maybe they didn't get, who knows what the story, okay? But I'm making this point to say they're doing well. Their site's amazing, making money, spending money on paid media, right? Look what happened. So what's the result as of now? Total loss of the domain name that I'm sure some equity has been built up over time. And now they're different URL, starting from scratch from that perspective, changing it in a million places. I mean,
so it never got fixed.
No, I mean, as of now, it didn't. And they're calling GoDaddy and saying, listen, what do we do? They're saying it's out of our hands. Yeah. It's migrated. It's in somewhere else. Can't do anything about it. Maybe it will resolve in a better way, but I'm making the point.
That's a tough break, by the way.
It's super tough, but again, that's one of the things I'm saying is like, make sure the foundation is right. Make sure what you have set up is done professionally, right? Yeah. Another point, make sure it's not all in one person's hands. Make sure that there are some checks and balances. Make sure that you aren't granting full access to one individual to your entire ecosystem that God forbid something goes wrong.
So real fast story just to champion off of that.
Sure.
I have had multiple employees in this building. We've been open 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And early on and I think I told you this story off air before, but early on we have a different type of clientele that comes in this place, as you know. People from all different backgrounds, demographics, wallet sizes, fame, popularity, whatever you may have it. And originally, this person was, think of them like a studio manager. They kind of had their, I think you do know this story now that I'm starting to tell it because you know the person. I'm not going to mention names, but this person decides to bring up in front of a client and a dear friend of mine politics.
Oh God!
And if you know what you do, if you know my friend, like that's probably not the thing to bring up to this person, especially what this person does for a living. They're a very good practicing criminal defense attorney. So just off of that alone, they can swap words with you, no problem. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, sure.
They have no problem holding their own.
Yeah.
But due to that conversation and a couple other things, not really tactful on this person, they, I believe, damaged the reputation of the studio for a little bit. Yeah. And it wasn't even just with that particular friend of mine client, it was 2 others. And that goes back to if you put things into the wrong hands of people, or and then, by the way, this is all my fault too. I had some sort of hiring process, but it wasn't 100% vetted. It wasn't 100% checklisted or whatever I needed to do to make sure I didn't do. And that was the result of it. It's almost like sleeping on the email or the GoDaddy thing and being like, I'll deal with it later, or it's not that big.
It's just not important because we're making money, right? No problem. We're shipping product. Who cares about GoDaddy?
No, that half-assed story I told you instance probably cost me about 10 grand.
Wow.
When it was all said and done.
And look, you're obviously trying, you're doing your best in that moment, right? You're not going into it saying, I'm on purpose not going to get the right person. No, at that moment you thought it was the right fit. But then, look, I'll be straight. I have very strong opinions in the political department, right? But would I bring that up and number one, alienate 50% or more of my audience? No, who cares? It's not my business to talk about that subject. Yeah. And what a poor decision on that person's, on that person to do that to you in this instance.
I was shocked.
Such an embarrassment.
Like I was shocked. It was one of those, like I had to address it in front of the client, which is never comfortable. But.
Yeah, no, not at all. So obviously that person's no longer here.
No, that was the last interaction I had with that person.
Yeah, and rightfully so.
Yeah, but and you know what, the lesson in that for me, going back to the foundational shit, going back to what you were just talking about, had I put a more attention, better process, all this other stuff, I probably would have got a different result. But the bigger lesson is I moved immediately. I didn't say to myself, but now it's going to rest on me and now I got to find another. I don't care. As soon as there's cancer, like you cut that out immediately before it spreads.
I love that. And I'll say that I'm a big believer in not allowing the cancer to remain. One must clear the room and allow space for the new individual to come, right?
Yeah.
I think there's 2 perspectives. Some people will say, we'll just leave them. They're not taking whatever. It is what it is. We'll find somebody else. No, it's not working out. It's never going to work out. My grandmother, may she rest in peace, used to say the new broom cleans the best. Okay.
Ooh, I like that.
It's not going to get better, right? It's only going to get worse, right? You think you can do it once.
That's true.
You can get away with it again and again and again and again.
Yeah.
I'll give you some instances. Like, in my professional life, I deal with, let's say, numerous team members in order to produce what we produce, right? It's not just me sitting alone. It would not be possible. Yeah. And I have very high expectations of those teammates. They'll all tell you that, right? They'll say, I'm the nicest guy in the world, but that doesn't mean I don't have high expectations. And it's critical that we all work in an environment called ClickUp. It's a project management tool. I've been fully invested in that for years now. It gets better. I love it. Strongly recommended. And I still, till this day, demand of everybody, track your time. Notate everything that you're doing in the task. If you don't do those things, how are we ever going to come back to it? It's not about me trying to micromanage every minute of your time. Don't take it. I always say that. Don't take it that way. Yeah. I'm not trying to be, put time doctor and like record your keystrokes or something. I'm not interested, right? I'll know in my heart if you're the right teammate of mine or not, right? Yeah. By communication, work ethic, etc. But I just feel so strongly that you got to have those things in place, right? The process has got to be there. If this individual from the Shopify store that I had mentioned to you had just had two-factor authentication on.
That's crazy, by the way. I still can't get that out of my head.
I mean,
especially how recent that was.
Legitimate. It just happened a week ago.
Yeah, I feel horrible.
So bad, ruined, right? Ruined, starting from scratch from the domain. Imagine that.
I can. I've had friends and I want to say even family members with a little bit different situations, substantially large social media channels that produced a healthy income.
Wow.
That got hacked.
God.
And it's like, give us this or we're going to delete the account. And then you see them start deleting posts and it just messes with the algorithm. It messes with everything. And one person in particular, like that's all they had in terms of source of income.
Wow.
They were a little bit on the younger side, but like imagine you spent years building a social channel, a brand, all this other stuff. And then like overnight, it's gone. Now, I don't know if they didn't have the two-factor authentication or whatever it was, but point being is like, I can imagine. I've seen behind the scenes, like it's ugly. That's why I'm like, when you're telling me that story.
There's a saying, I'm going to butcher it now, but it's something like one thorn of experience is better than a whole wilderness of warning, right? I forgot who said it, but to me, I take that to mean, as you said, there's no better learning experience than it happening to you directly. It will never happen to you again, right? I can sit here screaming about, hey, go do this, right? And somebody will say, oh, this guy's just overreacting. But if it actually happens to you, you will never make that mistake again.
No, and you know what's crazy? At least just from my own experience, the older I get, the more I realize I don't know anything.
I love that. I say the same.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like, or certain viewpoints and things that I have. And then particularly with business, because I mean, my whole life I've been entrepreneurial. I've had businesses, I've done stuff, whatever. But as cocky as I may have been, and still am, we all have an ego, right? But the older I get, and this particularly with this place, I'm like, oh, some of this cliche stuff is actually true. Or some of this small stuff that people say are important in a business is actually true. Or your way is not the only way that there is. You know what I mean? So just things like that.
Yeah, I say the more I know, the more I realize I know nothing, right? The more I learn, the more I realize I know nothing. It's
kind of rad though at the same time, like, because it's like, well, what else is there out there that I don't know about that I can learn?
True, and also scary because I thought I knew everything when I was in my teens and my early 20s. I had all the answers, right? I knew it all, right? And that's not true.
So life punches you in the stomach.
Oh, and then and there's no experience like that of, what is it, the University of, the School of Hard Knocks, right? No. Nothing will teach you better, that's for sure. So coming back to the foundations, I have to say a couple more things. It's been on my mind and my heart for a long time. Given what I do, I'm occasionally put in situations where I have a view into what others are doing in my space, right? Competitors, maybe potential merger, acquisition type situation. Without saying names, without going into detail, I'll tell you a couple of little stories. I've seen scenarios where teammates of a particular organization have full, uncontrolled access to Cloudflare, DNS management, full uncontrolled access to hosting,
Why do they need this stuff?
They don't. Full uncontrolled access to WordPress admin, right? They don't need it. And the more sites under management, the more of a headache it becomes.
Yeah.
So for example, once I heard of an instance of somebody that was terminated going into Google Search Console and literally disavowing the main URL of a business so that they were instantly removed from their top level first page rankings.
It's like a mechanic who is hired to work on this guy's Lamborghini or Ferrari or classic Mustang. And the day he gets fired, he's in the motor just ripping stuff out, pulling wires.
That's exactly right.
Who cares? Let me just damage this car so I can never drive again.
Correct.
That's what I think of when you...
I had happened to catch that one instance, but if I hadn't, I can tell you right now, weeks, if not months, would have gone by if ever someone would have realized that particular thing.
Yeah.
You know, access to DNS records. Essentially, the DNS records are the information relating to how everything works, email, systems, etc. Full access. Absolutely unheard of, ridiculous, right? It comes back to you must decentralize access to these sensitive things. And the more sites you have access and management over, the more critical it becomes. I often say to my system admin that I like, let's say, reducing risk by having things in maybe I have more of things of which I would need, but I love the reducing of risk across many things, right? And we have certain access that is allowed to developers that is specifically meant for development, right? Not full-blown access to every single thing. So why do I say all of this? Most people watching are like, Alex, you're the pro, relative to us, right?
Yeah.
What do I know about any of this? I think the big comment is, the cheapest option is often not the best option.
No.
And be careful with who you grant full access to your ecosystem and who is your partner managing this on your behalf.
Yeah.
So many times you would not believe. I talk to potential customers and I say, who's your host? I don't even know what that means.
Yeah.
Where's your domain name registered? I don't know. Is your email Microsoft or G Suite? I have no idea, right? These are problems, right? These are issues that you must realize and fix. And even if you take half a day or a day and have all the answers to all these questions taken care of, I think you'd be in a better position. It's a good use of your time. It is not something that is a loss. It's actually a big benefit from my position. So again, takeaway from just a big statement is be careful. Just because somebody says they're the doer of all things and an expert in such a way doesn't mean that they are. The right people have to be wearing the right hats. The right access should be given internally in that organization because lots of damage could happen potentially to you, the customer, and you wouldn't even know.
Can I make a point?
Sure.
Quasi, it's also a question. I'm making a statement that I just want to make sure it's correct.
Sure.
From a website perspective, it's not just, in my experience, which is definitely not your experience. We have different arenas of which we're good at, but being adjacent to your space, you kind of pick up on some things and you learn some things. With that said, it's crucial for the website stuff and everything we're talking about to be locked down, not just for a fear of getting hacked or not just for like an insurance reason, right? Like I want to make sure I'm secure and all that. Cause some people are like, oh, well, my business, and I'm talking as a small business owner, by the way. Oh, well, my business isn't that big yet, or I don't need it yet, or certain things happen. It's not just for the safety and security of that. It's also like how you make money. It's how you present yourself to the world.
Of course.
Right? Like it's what they're going to encounter on the first impression when they land on your website.
Yes.
Now, yes, there's social and there's a million different things you can do, but equally, like there's nothing like a website. There's a reason why everybody has them in terms of brands and businesses and whatnot, even if it's a simple splash page, right? Like the thought that goes into creating these is way different than it was back in the day. How it flows in the buyer's journey is way different than it was back in the day.
Yep.
And even now with some of the things like Wix and all these other basic stuff, like even that's not really cutting it anymore, at least to me from what I see, because people land on it and they're like, oh, this is just one of those freebie sites. They probably didn't take this stuff seriously. And if they don't take this stuff seriously, then how am I going to take their service?
I love that.
Seriously.
Look, I couldn't agree with you more.
Okay, good.
I couldn't agree more. Look, if you're a business that cares about how you look, if you're a business that wants the best outcomes, if you're a business that thinks that doing something in the least amount of time possible and cost possible is what you want, then I'm not the right person for you. I can't convince you that that's what you need. That that's who you've got to be at your core. And if you want if you expect value, if you expect results, then there's lots to talk about, right? There's lots to talk about because, as you said, anyone can go to some of the drag and drop builders, can slap something together and say, "Hey, I'm open for business." I can't help you with that, right? I can't help with that.
Do you know who Ryan? Sorry if I can.
No,
do you know who Ryan Trahan is?
I don't think so.
It's a very, very big YouTuber. And he's good too. I like watching him. He's got his own candy company. He's one of the the big Mr. Beast type creators. He's friends with the Mr. Beast actually.
Okay.
Does a lot of review stuff all over the United States. He'll do like 1 star. He'll visit a 1 star, try and give him a 5. He's very wholesome. Try and give him a 5 star. Recently, in his latest video, he visited 0 star restaurants in his area in Austin, I think it was.
Okay.
Trying to have a great experience to help him out and give him 5 stars because he's got such a big platform. One of the restaurants he visited, which happened to be, I think, decent. And by the way, this is on a channel with millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of views.
Okay.
He goes on their website, and the whole website's a template. It's a drag and drop template. And it even says on their homepage, this is a template for a restaurant scene or whatever. Like, they didn't take the time to even do that.
They didn't change the
didn't even
lorem ipsum dummy text that comes with it. Yeah.
No, the only thing they did was put their menu items up.
Yeah.
It's just one line, this, that, and the other. And immediately, again, from being in the creator space and your world a little bit, I'm seeing this. I just felt bad. I'm like, this was luck and preparation, meaning right time, right moment to have Ryan Trahan go visit especially in his hometown.
Yeah.
And he's broadcasting your website and business across millions of people all over the globe.
Yeah.
And that's what you got.
That's what they see.
Yeah. So anyway.
Look, I often say it's a representation of who we are today and where we think we're going, right? It must evolve, right? Who I am today is not who I was 2 years ago. Who I will be in 2 years from now is not quite who I am today. We're all evolving. We're all improving. It's just a fact. And again, that's not a sales pitch for selling expensive, ongoing edits. So that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But you need something that's well designed, that's representative of you and you can be proud of. You need something that your internal teams can have basic capability to edit, right? You wouldn't believe how often I talk to people and say, oh, we, generally feel okay with how the things look. That's not what I'm not looking for okay. I'm looking for exceptional, right? When I do work, I want to be proud, not just for your benefit, for mine too. I want to put it on my portfolio. I want people to be happy. But oftentimes people say, I don't even have a good content management system, which, I try to make a basic edit and the whole thing gets screwed up. So, well, what good is that?
Yeah.
What good is that? I deal with this all the time. Well,
the biggest thing, hold that thought. The biggest thing is these people got into it to be bakers and furniture dealers and bail bondsmen and auto repair shops. They didn't get in to be website developers.
They didn't. And
so why are they trying to do both?
It's true. Hire professionally, but this is it's a good outcome will come from hiring real professionals and not allowing price to be the determining factor for you. I'm not saying you should overpay, but
no, not at all.
I'm not saying that, but I am saying that you need to look for the best value and you need to look for people that care about the outcome. And I'll tell you now, I have often 25 to 30 development projects at any one time. Okay. It's quite a load on our shoulders, right? And hundreds of websites under management of which at any moment I could be requested to do work. And it's so critical, so important to ensure that you have the right team member. I don't know what else to say. It can cause such damage for somebody to not have the right platform, right? And it's amplified too when you're actually spending money, right? What happens when you start social ads? What happens when you start Google ads? There's actually a result, right? You have to continue to iterate and improve conversions, right? A big change in the amount of people that reach out to you on an existing page, if doubles because of something that was done on a page, well, who knows how much value they could potentially bring to you. So
there's certain things, I'm glad you keep saying value and you're not trying to get people to spend the most, because you're spot on. You're not trying to get people to spend the most money. You're trying to get them to spend what they actually should spend and not be cheap about it. Because in the long run, and this is just off my own experience, the cheaper route ends up costing you more anyway.
Of course it will.
In dollars and in time and in headache,
frustration,
and mind space, and just all that stuff. And again, I'm talking as a small business owner myself. It does hurt having to come up with some money in the beginning a little bit. You feel that sting. I'm not saying I'm above it either.
Sure.
But it's way less stuff you have to do down the line. It's way less changing out. What happens, which it did, again, I'll just speak for myself, the studio pops. Now all of a sudden I don't have to go back in and do all this other stuff with anything, by the way. And I'm not just talking web. Like if you own a business, like, come on, I'm not saying you have to go all out and buy the most expensive stuff, but.
So, and I'll make some statements too. You can go out in the market and someone will tell you it's $499 and they're going to custom make your site and they're going to give a whole list of deliverables that are incoherent. And you'll wait weeks and months and the very, very good chance of a bad outcome. I'm not saying everyone, but it's a very high chance. Again, professionals, they charge an hourly rate. Are you telling me that it takes 3 hours to build a website? It's nonsense, ridiculous. But on the other side, that same, let's say, scope of work could be given to a big agency, and you might get a quote of 25,000. You might get a quote of 50,000. A client of mine just the other day sent me a proposal from an agency. I would have quoted probably $12,000 to $15,000 for this is a massive project. This is not a standard one. And the quote was 60. I didn't even see any value. I didn't see where's the value? Where's this coming from? And oftentimes it's just coming out of the salesperson's brain.
Yeah.
There's no license, there's no credentials, no barrier to entry, there's no standard on how much this thing should cost, right? It's one of the biggest problems in the industry. So the takeaway is find people that give a shit about the outcome. Find people that don't have a good work-life balance like me. What do I mean by that? If I have a problem with a client, and it happens occasionally, okay, I'm a human being.
Yeah.
I cannot sleep at night. It comes into my dreams.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm serious. Even if I disagree with what the client is asking me, it's still my responsibility to see the project to the end. And there is zero chance of me not seeing a project to the end, even if it's to my detriment financially.
Yeah.
And again, I'm a human being. I do the best I possibly can. I have a wonderful team. Do things go perfectly always? No. But having somebody that will see it to the end, not tell you, oh, well, Mr. or Mrs. Client, we've done our, 2 revisions, and we understand that you don't like this, but it's going to cost another 17% more on this and 25% more on that just to finish it. Well, I'm sorry, I don't agree with that.
I've been fortunate enough to meet, I'd say, 5 to 8 of your clients through the work we've done out of this building, which they all love you. Like, it's cool to see from the outside you interacting with their clients, because I'm like, holy crap. Like, I can just tell without even knowing how much value and effort and everything you put in just by the way they treat you. Because I see a lot of people out of this building and it doesn't look like that.
Really?
Yeah. With that said, do you have a client where, and I don't want to say difficult, but like, did you ever have to like convert anybody early on? And maybe it wasn't because of you, they were just triggered or gun shy from previous whatever, and they ended up being like your best, or like they loved you the most, or like, holy crap, Alex, you literally just, you changed the way I looked at this business, and that's why I've been with you for the next, however long. Is there anybody like that comes to mind? I know this is
many.
random.
I mean, frankly, many.
Yeah.
Many. Like,
because I just imagine, so just some of the ones I met, I imagine they came in very like, don't mess with me. You know what I mean? Just
yeah. Let's say would soften over time as they got to know me.
Yeah, and then once they realized you were the legit real deal, they're like, oh, well, I got my guy. He'll just handle it.
I'll answer in a couple of ways. Okay. One, I have some clients that they say, Alex, I'm with you and I will be with you forever as long as you're the one that's in charge.
Yeah.
So I've heard that quite often. A couple thing comes to my mind too. Like in the last few months alone, I have been called back from clients that initially did not accept the proposal I made just due to cost. Okay. They said, we went with the $1,500 option. Okay. And they spent, one in particular, 9 weeks waiting for a home page. It was garbage.
Yeah.
What can I tell you? I can't support garbage. I can't support cheap.
What was I just saying? Cheap ends up costing you more?
Yeah.